And in Martin.
Well, good morning, everyone, and to Morning Coffee, RBN Television. I'm Joe Osmendi, your host, and we're welcome to have another edition of the Expert Series today, and we have a really, really good show for you today. I'd like to introduce the people who are going to be talking to you. First of all, we always have Karen Elzey, who's Associate Executive Director of Workcred, who sponsors the program, by the way, and also Susan Farago, who's a talent, let's put it, talent development and professional services at Salesforce. Ladies, welcome to Morning Coffee.
Thank you.
Okay, Karen, why don't you start and just give my audience once again a little bit of background about Workcred and what you guys do.
Sure. So Workcred is a nonprofit organization, and we focus on the effectiveness, market value, and quality of credentials. And when we talk about credentials, we're talking about degrees, certificates, certifications, micro-credentials, so the whole gamut. And what we're really excited about is to provide folks with more information about all the variety of credentials that are out there so that they can make informed decisions as they pursue their careers.
And Susan, again, welcome to the program. First of all, before we get into Salesforce, would you give my audience a little about your background, which I think is kind of unique?
Sure. Thank you for having me here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Susan Farago, as Joe said, and I'm with Salesforce, which is a software company, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But my background is actually in credentialing. So for the past 25 years, I've had the privilege of working with quite a few tech companies, from large tech companies all the way to small startups. And I've had the chance to work with subject matter experts to actually build quality technical certifications that people can then use to get jobs, to advance their careers, to maybe expand their portfolios in college or even at the high school level. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here today to talk about all things certification.
Great. Why don't you talk about Salesforce, when it was founded and what it's all about?
Sure. So Salesforce was founded in 1999 in San Francisco. And currently there are about, I think, 80,000 employees, so really a lot of growth over the last 23 years or so. And we are like I said, a software company, a CRM, customer relationship management software platform. And the interesting thing about Salesforce is that we have a really large presence in the tech industry. We also sort of sit behind the scenes, and the software the platform is used by a lot of different companies, big companies like the 3M or Mercedes-Benz type companies, all the way down to nonprofit organizations, where I think we have close to 50,000 nonprofits who are using the Salesforce platform. And the Salesforce platform really just helps organizations run their business, and it helps them manage their customer platform, their customer data, so that then our customers can go out and be successful with their customers.
One of the things you mentioned, you said there's big companies like Mercedes-Benz and even small companies can work with you successfully. Can you give me your size breakdown of what the companies are like?
Are you talking about like the percentage of Salesforce?
Right.
companies?
Do you don't mostly deal with large companies, or can any size company deal with you?
Sure. So around 50% of our customers, or people who use Salesforce, are actually small organizations, so companies 50 people or less. And so that's kind of the other thing to think about that's interesting about Salesforce skills is that, a lot of the people who use Salesforce, they're small companies. And so when we're talking about skilling up, gaining Salesforce skills, it's these smaller organizations that tend to have a lot of opportunity or provide a lot of opportunity in the job force. And then, the other breakdown is, large companies, and then, like I mentioned, nonprofits make up the other half of the Salesforce business.
Okay.
Susan, can you talk a little bit, like what types of jobs can people get if they gain skills in Salesforce? What can they do?
Sure. So I'll try to keep it tight, but it's really across the spectrum. So there are Salesforce sort of entry-level skills. So somebody can go and volunteer, if you will, for a nonprofit and gain Salesforce skills there. It might be just doing some very basic reporting. functions or some very basic Salesforce user type setup job functions, all the way up to people who have been using Salesforce for years and years, and they're system architects. So they're going into large companies and actually implementing or installing a Salesforce, across a large enterprise. And so it like I said, it's really soup to nuts in terms of the skills that are Salesforce skills that are available and in demand. And then just one other piece to this, because Salesforce is such a large organization, if you've heard of Tableau, which is a data analytics platform, Tableau is owned by Salesforce. Slack is owned by Salesforce. For those of you who might be a little more technical in nature, if you've heard of MuleSoft, which is a API connectivity part of the Salesforce platform. So there's different specializations within Salesforce that people can gain skills. So people are really interested in Tableau. They want to learn about data analytics, creating reports, and doing a lot more within the Tableau space. You can specialize, if you will, within the Salesforce ecosystem in those skills. And just like everything else, those skills are very much in demand right now.
One of the things I think we had talked about earlier is there's no need for higher education to start with, and there's no fees to start with. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that's one of the really cool things about the Salesforce platform is, you might notice that I'm wearing a Trailblazer hoodie. So people who are, really passionate about learning Salesforce, they become what we call Trailblazers. And so Trailblazers are, like I mentioned, they're people who are brand new to Salesforce, or they're like, what is the Salesforce thing? I want to learn more, all the way up to highly certified, highly technical people. And so Trailhead really provides this great path for learning. You can demonstrate your skills. It could be a great alternative for a 2 to 4 year degree. We have some high school programs where high school kids are starting to learn about Salesforce and really build out their technical portfolio, so that then they have the option to say, well, maybe I don't want to pursue a traditional 4-year degree. I want to just jump right into the technology field and go that direction. Or we have people who do have the 4-year degree, and then on top of that, they want to build out their skills. And so they'll go ahead and pursue Salesforce certifications to get, to change jobs, to supplement the current job, to get a promotion, so on and so forth.
Why don't you specifically go into what the Salesforce skills are, so my audience really understands exactly how the program works?
From a Trailblazer perspective?
Sure.
Okay. So like I mentioned, Trailblazer, if you go to trailhead.salesforce.com, you'll be presented with a screen where you can log in, you can create a free account, you answer some questions, and then you can start exploring. And so the skills might be, like I mentioned, anything from, very basic introduction to technology. So like right now, AI, artificial intelligence, is, all over the place, in the news and newspapers. A lot of people are talking about it. So if you don't have any idea what AI is, you can go out to Trailhead and learn about AI at a very basic level. There's also business skills that you can learn about as part of Trailhead, business acumen, things like that. And then, like I mentioned, all the way up to setting up what we call a sandbox or an environment where you can actually download code and start coding, again, at a very basic level to get your feet wet, and then build from there. And that's another really great thing about the Trailhead platform, is that it can be very intro level to get you started, all the way up to spinning up, like I said, these environments where you've got access to the software and you're actually coding and you're building things, and the system will check your work. And then you can go on and earn badges and hopefully eventually certifications, all on the platform. So it's really got a lot of depth and breadth to it. Just depends on what you're looking for.
So there's opportunities for literally anybody that wants to involve themselves in this, correct?
It really is. And so I'll give sort of 2 examples. Again, on the one end of the spectrum, there's my mom, who, again, was very curious about AI, and she, what is this? Why are people talking about it? And so she actually went out to trailhead.salesforce.com. She set up her own account, and she started learning about AI and and earning badges, and she thought that was kind of fun. And then all the way to the other end of the spectrum, I've got a coworker and a good friend of mine named Clint. I think he's on certification probably number 14 or 15 out of 40 that are available through Salesforce.
Wow.
And so he's extremely technical, and he's got to stay up to date on the latest and greatest of what Salesforce has to offer. And so he's also out on Trailhead learning. Same platform, two very different learning styles and experiences.
I think that is so interesting because a lot of people, when they look at certifications in the first place, they like to see how hard do they get, how long does it take and everything. And yet your program allows you to work at their own pace and whatever level of let's say, expertise they want.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I've also seen some interesting things, interesting uses of the platform where it might be someone individual goes out and sets up their account, and they just sort of work on their own when they can, all the way to there's a group out of St. Louis, Missouri, who has sort of set up an official environment where students can come in and they'll actually help them gain Salesforce skills in sort of more of a structured environment. So there are a lot of like I said, opportunities to gain these skills.
Right.
Again, very unstructured. Currently, right now, the Salesforce Trailblazer community is 6 million strong.
Wow.
6 million strong. So there are a lot of resources out there. You can sign up for newsletters, user groups, email distribution lists, whatever it is that you want to get help to gain those skills. Or, like I mentioned, there are other organizations who will sort of walk you through the process in more of a structured way. And it's just really amazing. I mean, I'll just be very candid. I was a huge fan of Trailhead before I even came to work for Salesforce. I remember sitting through a demo of the platform, and I was just blown away. Because first off, it's free, it's well structured, there's a ton of content out there, and it's fun. When you go out and you see the platform for the first time, you'll see these cute little characters. There's a bear. There's a little character that looks like Einstein. And so it really makes learning fun, and you kind of don't realize you're learning, but you are, just because it's so well structured.
You know what you mentioned. It's so important you mentioned that because when anybody wants to get anything in learning, I think that the crux of a successful learning platform is the fact it should be entertaining, should be informative, and should be educational. And that seems Salesforce and has every one of those criteria.
It really does, and there's a lot of platforms out there that just sort of go in and kind of do the click the buttons and that it. But Salesforce and Trailhead have really done a great job of making that learning interactive, engaging, and as a result, when you go through and actually pursue some of the trailheads, as they're called, or the paths,
right,
you can either follow something that's already built, or you can create your own journey. So again, it allows for that flexibility of the learner. What do they really want to know? And then on top of it, they get some really great hands-on experience to gain those skills. I mean, right now, over the last 5 years, there has been a 400% increase in credentialing programs.
Wow.
And there are over 1 million credentials right now. And so from a consumer or a candidate perspective, that's a lot to choose from. So how do you kind of pick and choose what's important from an alternative credential perspective? And then on top of that, many of the credentials don't really have that hands-on aspect to it. And so again, platform, credentials like Salesforce and the platform such as Trailhead really give you that hands-on experience. You get some badges, you can earn some certifications, and the industry can tell the difference. People who hire for Salesforce certification, or Salesforce skills rather, and people who have those certifications or those badges, there's a difference. And hiring managers know it. job placement. Organizations know it because of that hands-on aspect that the platform provides.
Susan, you raise a great point, because that's, one of the big challenges, right? Is people want to know, well, so you learned something. What can you do, right? Can you demonstrate your knowledge? And what you're saying is that Trailhead builds that in to provide people with that hands-on experience that they might not get somewhere else. So they get that combination of demonstrating that they can actually do something, as well as demonstrating that they possess knowledge.
Exactly. And Karen, that's really the differentiator, right? I call it, it's the difference between being book smart and skill smart. And book smart will only get you so far. You really want that skill smart. And at the end of the day, a lot of candidates do want to gain skills. They want to be able to learn. They want to be able to have something that shows the results of their learning, whether it be Trailhead badges or a Salesforce, one of the 40 Salesforce certifications. And like I said, the market knows that, the industry knows that that Salesforce skills are valuable. And just another little quick stat, Salesforce and partners will create 11.6 million jobs between 2022 and 2028. 11.6 million jobs that are looking for Salesforce skills. And so again, the huge opportunity. You've got the Trailhead platform that is ready to serve up skills for people to learn. It's just, like I said, if I didn't work for Salesforce, I'd still be this excited about it, because it's just such a great opportunity and a great combination to marry, skills and credentials, and help people get jobs or help people skill up.
One thing I'm so glad you mentioned that, Susan, because one of the things that I found out with credentialing, especially, is it really demonstrate what skills you have, rather than, like you said, book learning. Skills, what you can do in a job is so much more important to an employer than what you've learned. And I think that differentiation is exactly what credentialing is all about. And it seems like that's exactly what your organization can do, is give the employers the opportunity to get those people that have those skill sets.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, like I said, that hands-on experience, the going out and actually doing instead of just reading about something, that makes all the difference in the world.
We mentioned the AI. I want to just talk about that a little bit more, because everybody is afraid of AI now. Is AI going to take my job? Am I going to be sitting there without work and everything? And yet AI can be integrated into the Salesforce especially. Can you go on a little bit about that for me?
Sure. So, AI, I don't know that I could get through a day without seeing the initials AI,
right.
Because like you said, it's everywhere. And I think, there's a couple different ways to think about this. Certainly from my perspective working at Salesforce, AI gets very technical very fast, because it's something that, we're building, we're coding, we're developing, we're releasing. But from an end user perspective, I think it's really important to just understand, what is it? How are organizations using it? ChatGPT is one aspect of AI. So it's very easy to go out and just see, what is this ChatGPT? Oh, I can create a free account. I can learn about it. I can try it out and kind of see what it's all about. And so again, if we kind of take a step back and look at, from a Salesforce perspective, again, the full spectrum is available to learn. So I mentioned my mom, she's curious about AI, so she went out and set up her own Trailhead account and just started learning about what is it, how are people using it. And then I, kind of took it a step further. There is a Salesforce Certified AI Associate certification, which does require a little bit of technology know-how, not a lot, but just sort of understanding how AI works and how it's structured. So there's a really great what I would call an entry-level credential that Salesforce offers. And by the way, I earned it by completing the Trailheads on the paths on Trailhead. And then I took the exam and I passed. And then again, like I said, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where you're getting into, learning about NLP and how AI is structured and kind of all the technical stuff that goes along with it. That's also available on Trailhead. So again, AI is not just one very specific technical thing. It's very broad, and there's a lot of opportunity to learn about it, just depending on your need or your interest.
What do you see in the future of credentialing that's going to be more accessible to people?
So, so as I mentioned, there's been a huge explosion in credentialing programs, in credentials themselves. And so there's a couple things that I sort of pay attention to, probably within the last few years, and I'm curious to see where it goes. The first thing is making sure that credentials have value and meaning. There are a lot of credentials out there that just, I call them class equals pass, which, maybe you take an online module or you sit in a class, an actual class, and then at the end, it's sort of an attendance, right? But they're calling that a certification. So, I would just say, be careful of what the certification of the credential actually means or what's behind it, because there's a lot of them that just don't have a whole lot of teeth to them.
Right.
So I would, I'm paying attention to that. How as credentials evolve, what does the term credential mean? Because that's changed as well. The second thing I would that I'm kind of keeping my eye on is making sure that, again, from a technical perspective, if people are interested in gaining technical credentials, and not just with Salesforce, with any technology, that the credential that they earn, like I mentioned before, kind of has that teeth to it. It has that skill aspect, that hands-on perspective, because that's going to be a really big differentiator when people go to, apply for jobs or apply for promotions. The hiring managers want to know that people who have the certification can actually do the job, not just tell them about the job. They can actually sit down and either code or, whatever it is that the credential might be related to. So those are the two things that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. But, what does it really mean to have the value of certification and a credential? And then just the number of credentials that are in the market right now. There's a ton of them, and I think it's causing a lot of market confusion because people don't know, well, if I go get this credential, does it mean anything? And so I would say that's sort of the future of credentialing right now. I want to actually add one more thing.
Okay.
There is something else that's starting to evolve, this idea of micro-credentials or smaller credentials. And so those can be very powerful, right? They're little bits of learning and then, if you have enough of them, you can stack them, and it might result in a certification, or it might allow you to specialize in a particular area that you're interested in. So again, micro-credentials can be great, very powerful, but you have to be careful that, again, they're not just sort of this watered down, I read a document, or, I took a class and got a check mark for completion. So, so those are the things I'm sort of keeping an eye on in that credential.
Well, you are a wealth of information, Susan. I'm serious, and I think that's it's so much interesting for my audience that have learned so much about credentialing and certification, and you just added another layer on it. And I really appreciate that. So we're at the time in our program right now. I'd like you to look into your camera there and tell people how they can reach you and who should call you, and then Karen, I'd like you to do the same after she's finished.
So, like I mentioned, kind of the call to action, if you will, is please go out to trailhead.salesforce.com, set up your own free account, and just start playing around and see what you learn, see what you find out, and you never know where that will take you. So that would be my call to action for the audience, and I hope when you do that, you find out how fun learning can be, and you get just as excited as I am about becoming a trailblazer. So, Karen, over to you.
Thanks. And to access Workcred resources, you can go to www.workcred.org, and there you'll find information, including what Susan mentioned, which is definitions. How do you understand what certificates are versus certifications versus badges? And that will help individuals make decisions about the type of credential that you would like to pursue and what's behind that credential. What does that credential actually mean?
Ladies, thank you again for joining us on Morning Coffee and the Expert Series. And